What's up? Welcome back to the Cyrus King Show. It's your host, Cyrus King. In this episode, I'm going to talk a little. You could say it's magic, but it's not really. It's magic, but it's more observation, right? I have, you know, I've been in and out in YouTube for years, right? Been teaching in other platforms kind of steady since like 10, 12 years. Actually, 2010 went to 14 years. Man, time flies. And, you know, I've always tried to get people to kind of see, in a sense, that the occult. I look at it like this. I don't try to convince someone that I would say I don't try to convince someone that it's not scary per se. What I would normally do is, I would say what I would normally do would be, well, because I kind of mix my stuff with politics and cultural observations, kind of tell you that if you're serious, which people who claim to be spiritual are supposed to be serious, the occult is kind of the only way out. And I say the occult and not spirituality because spirituality can get kind of like, you can kind of become on some space cadet shit, right? You're spiritual and shit, and you don't care about this, you don't care about that, you don't relate to people around you. I'm not into that. That's not healthy. The occult is more like grounding that same spiritual system in ways to help your life, and you actually end up seeing the spiritual connection to physical stuff in the physical world. So you start even caring about stuff in the physical more. You start caring about even stuff like the arts, politics, bettering yourself economically, trying to make change in the world generally that has nothing to do with spiritual subjects. Kind of seeing the benefit to science. Kind of seeing, wow, the impressive, kind of seeing the impressive nature of nature itself, the ecosystem itself, where you start seeing, wow, I should try to preserve this. Like it starts to go into other parts of your life that you don't think of as spiritual. So I rather say the word occult in that sense because it's like practicing this stuff like a science. And there's many different degrees. There's many different, people are in different points in the path, right? The funny thing is, there's always arguments about what's the best spiritual system, right? And in reality, it shouldn't be an argument about what's the best spiritual system because once you're saying that, you already failed. Almost every spiritual system that you see is dead. Dead meaning it's frozen. It's in a book. The structure was written for 1,000 years ago when we were in a different mindset. Like we fell. Like one thing the occult does understand pretty well is we are fallen people, fallen race. I'm talking about humans all over the world. And so when we fallen, we just don't connect to nature, which then helps us not connect to the cosmos, or causes us not to connect to the cosmos. And in a sense, when we don't connect to either one, and we evolve like that, you tend to have bad habits that span generations, and not just bad habits. You don't really know the world that you live in, right? At all. You don't know what's going on in your own inner mind. So when a system is made 3,000 years ago, and it doesn't change. So meaning, and I don't want to say any system's name. I mean, I said it in the title. Kabbalah is superior to any spiritual system. Period. People get mad at that. It's the truth. It's 50% of the reason why the Jews are so strong. The other 50% reason is their ability to finesse and understand aspects of the physical world to benefit their people. But I've always found Kabbalah, like I said, and when I'm saying this, I'm not counting esoteric Sufism. Esoteric Sufism is superior to Kabbalah. It's just very hidden, and you're not going to be able to. It's not really written about as much as people think it is. Sufism is kind of this big range of things. Some people could have it as a liberal type of Islam. So if you could be a Sunni or Shia and you just practice a more liberal version of that, they call you Sufi. I'm not talking about that. Esoteric Sufism, particularly when it's in places that already had a strong lunar system to begin with. So let's say like Senegal, they had a strong lunar system to begin with. So Sufis over there would practice things that still incorporate African traditional religions. I'm talking about the esoteric Sufis. So if they're doing things to incorporate the African traditional religions, just like they're doing in Sudan and in Somalia and in Mauritania, even sometimes in parts of Nigeria, some hostels are very rigid, but traditionally, even some parts of Nigeria, yeah, you would see Sufism incorporated with the beliefs of the people whose native religions are something else. That only makes the Sufism stronger. When you see stuff like that, that Sufism is stronger than Kabbalah, because Kabbalah is an aspect of Sufism, in a way, right? Again, I'm talking about esoteric Sufism. So when I say this, I'm not counting that. And the reason why I don't put just Sufism instead, because there's too many things that get lumped in together as Sufism. With Kabbalah, there's Hermetic Kabbalah with a Q, and Christian Kabbalah with the C, Jewish Kabbalah spelled with the K. You got that. If I don't count that, though, you got, and mind you, some people get mad at this, right? But here's the problem. A lot of ancient cultures practice Kabbalah. The Jews are the ones who wrote it down. So then that's when certain stuff started happening and people got conquered, a lot of people either forgot their native Kabbalah, or because Kabbalah is universal science. Traditionally, it's really based on mathematics in a way. So it don't matter what planet you're in. If you're doing Kabbalah, you're going to come to the same conclusion anyway, right? So when you understand that, and you realize that everyone had their native version, not everyone, but a lot of cultures did, right? Then you realize that this is not to be like, to disparage anybody's spiritual systems, because I still do other systems besides Kabbalah. If you look at my videos, you can't even say that Kabbalah is the majority of what I do. But without question, because it's a system that's alive. So, for instance, but here's the problem. You got two types of Kabbalah besides, the Gnostic version and the Hermetic version. You got Kabbalah that's just performed as a psychology, which is still important, which is going to be the majority of what people are doing Kabbalah. So you have that version. Then you have the version that is more esoteric. And the version that's more esoteric, yeah, it's the most powerful spiritual system because it's the most consistent and it's alive. So, to give you an example, let's say a person worshipped the Greek gods or Norse gods or gods from Nigeria, right? Even though the concept of gods is more of a European thing, even though people tend to just say, these and Lords are gods, there's aspects of them that could be exalted ancestors, but some of them are elementals. Or let's say spirits of fire, water, wind, and earth. Others are cosmic forces. So I can't honestly say the Eastern Lords are gods, they're kind of above that. But the concept of gods is like this thing that's kind of started in Greece and influenced from India, where the concept of avatars, right, which is just a more spiritually developed soul, gets included with gods, right? But whatever. Let's say you're taking gods of India. Let me include that. Gods of Greece, gods of Rome, right? Gods in China. You can look at the attributes of the gods, especially if you assign a planet to the gods. And those gods, a Kabbalists will be able to tell where in the tree they're from. The tree has 10 sephers. So they'll be able to tell, and I'm talking about magical Kabbalah, not as much the Kabbalah that's psychology. But the Kabbalah that's psychology is important because everyone is crazy. And I do believe Kabbalah sort of tries to heal that before you get into any magic. It's important. But you can look at the gods of those other cultures and you can see where in the tree they're from, right? Or where in the tree, the forces that they represent. So the god of the sun will be from a certain part of the tree. The god of the moon will be from a certain part of the tree. Let's say goddess of the moon will be, god of Mercury will be from a certain part of the tree. The God of Saturn or goddess of Saturn will be from a certain part of the tree, or represent forces from that particular part of the tree. A Kabbalist could insert that god there and actually include it in their work. But that god will normally be lower than, the energies coming from the upper parts of the four worlds, especially the first two worlds of Kabbalah. Right? There's four worlds in Kabbalah, five worlds in Sufism or Sufi influence esotericism, which is kind of an offshoot of Kabbalah, right? They have five worlds. Kabbalah is at four. So they can see which world these forces represent, and they can include them in their work if they want to. And when they include them in their work, their system keeps evolving. Everybody else says, I do this way, I do this way. And here's the thing. Is there some truth to the fact that, no, when I'm doing it, there's several ATRs I do. So for instance, let's talk about Obi. I do Obi a certain way, right? And Obi itself is a system that can take some other systems, but still remains African. So my interpretation will be very different than somebody in Ifa and Voodoo if they're more stern in a rigid way, right? They're going to more be like, oh, it has to be this way. All I would say to that is, the problem when people mix systems is, if you mix systems, you must know each system individually. I probably know Taoism better than any system. I know that by itself. That's why I always say American Taoism is crap. You go to the East with Taoism, especially like in Singapore and Taiwan and them, right? It's not as suppressed by the CCP. You do that type of Taoism. You incorporate in the gods, but you also incorporate in Chinese medicine, which has roots in Chinese alchemy. You're not just doing the philosophy of Taoism like how a lot of people in America do, right? And Taoism, in that sense, is kind of living. Because when you incorporate Chinese medicine, which is really Chinese alchemy, when you live in the world, you're going to always have to keep going back to that. You always have to keep updating your information, right? If in China, they didn't know about coffee at first. Then we discovered coffee. Well, you have to update your information. Hence, the system is fucking alive. These other systems, even Christianity and Islam, is dead. In the sense that it's in a book. And it's going to be dated. And it's not going to evolve with the changing circumstances of society's needs. Hence, there's so much wars that happen over them. In that sense. Now, I tell anybody, because I get that question. Somebody asks me a question, I'm so confused with all these magical systems. I just forget your name, by the way. I forgot. But you asked me that question, right, on Instagram. I got to look it up, what your name is, because your account is freaking, you asked it and then it's gone again. So I can't remember what name you were. But I like the question, so it inspired me to do a video, because people will hear this and get mad. And I don't know how would you get mad, because while the Christians and Jews and Muslims there may be attributes of the angels they get wrong. And I don't want to say, it's not my place to say they get wrong, but there may be attributes of the angels that their cultural understanding disrupts them really describing the principles of what the angelic forces are. But just think about it. If a person's an atheist, a Kabbalist can just say the angels are hidden aspects of the mind. That because it's hidden, there's like a lot of mental illness that are going on because modern culture is not addressing that. Right? And so for that atheist, he may not still like the answer, but it's not spooky. For other people, you say, no, angels are, you want to say they're kind of from, they represent energies that are from hidden worlds that we haven't transformed enough our senses to perceive. And because they're from worlds that are beyond our Big Bang, beyond our Earth. And I'm not talking no alien shit, because the alien shit that's part of the problem too, right? Talk about extra dimensional forces. They're significantly stronger than a lot of forces that other people call on. But the difference will be is that what makes them unique is they're not neutral forces. So where a lot of lunar systems go wrong is they will say, you call on that, nothing happens. Yeah, because you don't go to them for bullshit. That's the difference. What does Kabbalah says it does? Teach you to become one with the divine, right? Or not even really, that's yoga. Kabbalah does teach you to receive, which is similar to yoga. That's why they call Kabbalah Western yoga. Because yoga says to teach you to become one with the divine. Kabbalah says teach you to receive. So until you know how to receive, those angelic forces are not as dominant. Until then, that's when, it's kind of like what the Old New Testament is. The Old Testament is kind of what a lot of, besides the Old Testament, it's symbolic of a lot of the shit that on a lunar level, which is the beginning stages that people are into. The Newer Testament is symbolic of a transformed state, right? So it could be Obia, it could be shamanism, right? It could be many different things. It could be Ifa. Or it could be Wicca, right? If I use any one of those systems, I'm using those for something different than what I'm using angels for. So Kabbalah allows you to have that flexibility, right? Where a lot of other systems don't. Now, there's some Kabbalah, the majority of Kabbalists won't even use other lunar systems. See, the only weakness in Kabbalah, from my perspective, is when the Kabbalah says things they don't need other lunar systems. So that's when it becomes closer. So that's why when some of these people listen to this video, they're like, what do you mean it's the most powerful magic? Because it's magic and psychology. And from the psychology aspects, it goes into real life shit. Right? I don't have to look at, somebody don't have to be atheist. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to talk to them. I just switch up. You go into the mind. We don't got to go to the spooky shit. Kabbalah is very tied into modern science. A lot of modern science it was inspired by Hermeticism, and Hermeticism has an older type of Kabbalah spelled with a Q. So a Kabbalist is more scientific than a lot of other people from lunar systems. Then we wonder why the Jews have it locked both ways, the spiritual and the physical. That's why. It is the most powerful system. Now here's the difference. Kabbalah represents the esoteric version of Judaism. The esoteric version of Judaism knows that this knowledge is for everybody. That's the key. So when I'm saying this, that's the difference. Like you could go Kabbalah and something else, right? So it's like if somebody's a Wiccan, Kabbalah doesn't interfere with your Wiccan stuff. It doesn't. It actually helps you understand the force of what Wicca represents more, which is coming from the last of the four worlds. That's what the forces Wiccans are tapping into. You understand that more. Whereas other systems tell you this is how we did 2,000 years ago, and we don't change, we don't evolve, we don't care what land we in. You could be in Peru, you could be in Congo, you're going to do the same shit. No, you're not going to do the same, but you are, because you don't have a flexible way of understanding the world. Again, does that mean you shouldn't be into tradition? No, I think that you should. If you're in Peru and you're doing some magic that was originated in Congo, you should probably understand how they do it in Congo. Yes, that is true. You should understand that, for sure. But once you go past that, yeah, you're going to still have to practice a system that has adapted to your current circumstances. That's why Kabbalah is the top system in the world, because its ties to science cannot be disputed. Its ability to take other systems and tell you where they originated from, and if you want to, which a lot of Kabbalists don't, which is a mistake, if you want to, you can incorporate it in your work. At that point, yeah, you're stronger than anybody. There's a reason why I don't take motherfuckers serious. Because I go in their system, fight them there, and I got a whole bunch of other shit they haven't seen before. So I don't take a person who says I'm a magician, I don't take them serious most of the time. Now, there's other people who, like I said, if a person is doing the same shit I'm doing, I'm going to take them serious. Of course. If they're not, I let them live. But I believe that for a lot of you guys who, in the West, you guys are going to the East for information. But Kabbalah is more tailored to the Western mind. I don't care what race you are. Unless you go East, like I went East, right? I chopped up with some folks in the East. So I do Eastern shit. Like I said, Eastern shit I know better than Western shit. Naturally. The Western stuff has been the last 10, 12 years. I was doing Eastern stuff so I was like 97, 98. First time I went to the East was like 99. By 2000, when I started teaching 2009, I already was 10 years and lived in the East for a little bit. Right? I've been in Thailand, been in China, been in Japan, been in the Philippines, been in Cambodia, been in Vietnam, right? And we talk about what you guys like, the Eastern shit, right? I've been in the Middle East too, but that's Western Asia, right? Been in Kazakhstan. So when I'm looking at all that, I'm not some Westerner just in love with the East and never chopped it up with them, never did anything. That's why y'all cause so much problems. You don't understand what the hell you're doing, or you get guys who from the East who come here and just pimping. Literally. Like I said, Taoism house practice here is incomplete. In the East, listen, Chinese gods included, your shit for the ancestors included. The I Ching and all the divination, you kind of teach people how that could affect your body, as well as the common divinational tools of asking questions for your everyday life. All that shit is included. You crazy? That's not included over here though. And most importantly, it's merged with Chinese medicine. There's no doing Taoism, and I don't know nothing about Chinese. Chinese medicine is Chinese alchemy. They're tied in together. That is tied to Taoism. That's extremely important. And if you have time, you will know that they're also kind of influenced by Mongolian shamanism and the Indian alchemy from the Siddhas. But American cats don't know that who do Taoism here, because the dudes who come here with Taoism don't even say that, don't even know it, or they're just trying to make a quick buck. So you have some techniques about holding in your sperm and don't ejaculate, and that's all you have. Or you have the healing sounds, which are extremely important, but after a year or two, it's not that hard to learn, and then you haven't moved on from that point. So again, for the Western mind, if you're in the East, well, you don't have to worry about this video. If you're in the West, which is Europe, America, South America, Caribbean, no matter what race you are, Kabbalah is tailored for the way you think. And it's alive. So, Siris King, till next time, peace.